Welcome to Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Shipp, and I'm excited to be sharing with you my life with a son on the spectrum. This podcast is for anyone who is looking for quick tips and perspective, but most of all, for hope and inspiration. So sit back, relax, and let's put the pieces together. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Shipp. Thank you so much for joining us today. Last episode, we had the great pleasure of speaking with Miss Jeannie Beard, the founder of National Autism Academy and the author of a book called Autism and the Rest of Us. If you didn't get a chance to tune into that episode, please do. We had a wonderful and delightful conversation, and I am so grateful for her. Thank you so much, Jeannie, for being on the show again. Are you a parent, teacher, or leader who feels the heavy pressure to hold everything together? If you look fine on the outside but feel overwhelmed and reactive on the inside, then today's episode is exactly what you need. Our guest today is Pennie Wilson, a mental fitness coach and certified hypnotherapist. Pennie has a truly unique approach to her work because of her own lived experience within a narcissistic relationship dynamic, and she has also stepped away from traditional hypnosis. Instead, she empowers her clients to consciously engage their own subconscious minds. She teaches you how to shape the mental wiring of your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs safely and intentionally. Pennie's work blends emotional regulation, calm self-mastery, and a method called TED, also known as the empowerment dynamic. She is completely dedicated to helping people step out of reactive drama and into connected, healthy relationships. As a mother who navigated her own daughter's late autism diagnosis, Pennie brings deep empathy and practical wisdom to help us lead from clarity instead of stress. Please join me in welcoming Miss Pennie Wilson. Thanks so much for being here today, Pennie.
Thanks so much, Nikki. I'm so excited to have our conversation today.
I am too. I've been looking very much forward to this, and I felt such a connection to you when we first spoke on our discovery call, and I love what you're doing for people. I love how you're helping people, and I just felt that it was something that my listeners really needed to hear from you today. So thanks again for being here so much.
Absolutely.
Now, I know we've talked about this. You work with highly capable people who often feel overwhelmed. For my listeners who are listening, I'm raising my hand right now. What is actually happening beneath the surface when someone looks fine but feels really exhaustive or reactive on the inside?
It's typically a state of unconscious programs that are running in the background. Lots of imagine that you have your computer screen open. And if you do this, I do this too. I have 50 tabs and then my computer starts slowing down, right? Yesterday it was going on the glitch. It's like, I can't perform what you're asking me to do right now in this moment because all these other things are going on.
Right.
So, yes, exactly. It's bandwidth. It's the ability to be present in the moment that's lacking because of everything else happening.
Okay. Yeah, and I, again, raising my hand for my listeners that are listening and not watching me on YouTube today, that is very much the definition of how I feel on a lot of levels, a lot of days. On the surface, I look fine, I appear fine, everyone thinks I'm okay. One of my good girlfriends and I joke around all the time, like, I'm fine, it's fine, everything's fine. But on the inside, you're having this, you're exhausted, you're tired, you're feeling all these other emotions, but there's a lot of masking going on. Yeah. You have a really deep personal story regarding kind of a lot of this, but also with your daughter's late autism diagnosis as well and her early childhood struggles. How did that experience shape your understanding of emotional regulation? Because isn't that kind of where it started?
Absolutely, yeah. Back in the beginning, I call it my momzilla stage. I did not have an understanding of emotional regulation. I was completely reactive, and she was 2 at the time when we started butting heads really seriously because she's very independent. She's very driven. I always say that she was 2 going on 22. If she can make it through being a toddler, then maybe she'll survive and she'll be spectacular in adulthood, right? She wouldn't wear pants from the time she was 2 to maybe the time she was 6. And that should have been a clue for me, like, what's going on here? But because of my emotional overload, I didn't have the bandwidth to start asking the questions for how to support her. So emotional regulation wasn't tools that I had. I didn't understand what was happening inside of me. So I was very unconscious of my inner journey and the story that was happening.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, you know, when I talk to parents that have kids that have had a late diagnosis, what you're describing is exactly what I hear from them. You know, looking back, they realize that they were in that emotional overwhelm, or that they were being reactive and not. And in fact, I was just having this conversation in the last episode with Jeannie Beard. Like, I really had to get kind of out of my own head to be able to take action to help my son. And when you're dysregulated like that, you never really come out of that. Would you think that does that sound somewhat accurate?
Absolutely, yeah. I remember feeling like my whole life was a state of emergency. Like, just for a quick snapshot, we took a new RV on a trip. It had a blown tire, the engine caught on fire, and we hit a sheep on the way down from the mountain, all in the same trip. So that, like, is a metaphor for how I felt my life was. All these emergencies kept happening, and I was constantly in a state of fight or flight. So it feels like we're running away from a tiger, running away from a freight train, and we don't have the ability to stop and pause and slow down. And people, like, will give you advice and say, you just need to slow down for a minute. And you're like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to pause. So it's really recognizing, and I help people go through a 4 R's process to really begin to have empathy for themselves and begin that process of awareness.
Yeah, and I think it's important. We don't realize we can give ourselves permission, right, to do that. And so you bringing that up, it brings that to light to me. Like, I realized, like, much later that I could give myself permission. I didn't feel that way early on, you know.
Yeah.
What is the real difference between reacting and responding, and why does that matter so much within parenting and even leadership? You know, I think that kind of goes hand in hand.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the bottom line is the relationship. What is the feeling in that relationship, and what is being created? So when you're in a state of fight or flight, back to my 2-year-old who wouldn't wear her pants, and I was emotionally triggered and frustrated, and I wanted to control all of the circumstances that really weren't mine to control, but I wasn't aware of at that time. I was living from the back part of my brain, and your listeners have probably heard over and over again about fight or flight, and the amygdala and all the things that you just automatically react. I call it like the sergeant in the brain. He's demanding and controlling, and he's trying to keep everybody safe. Just do what I say. Yeah. So that's the part of the brain that's taking control. The problem is your problem-solving centers, the clarity, come from the front part of your brain. Right. Problem-solving, innovation, creativity, all the things that we want to experience in life, like flow and connection, that happens in the front part of the brain. So when you're having that reaction in that moment of, I'm snapping at my kids, or there's an emergency I have to react to, as soon as you can notice and find a place of calmness, you can start thinking from a clearer place to actually have pressure inside of the storm, so to speak. Yeah. So you become the eye of the storm instead of, yelling and running around on the ship where the wind is blowing and being crazy.
Right.
So it's a different emotion that you feel inside. And then when you feel that calmness in your own heart, other people, especially children, because children under the 7 are living in a subconscious automatic state where their brain is being programmed. They co-regulate with you so that if they feel your calmness, they're going to be like, oh, this crazy thing is happening, but mom's calm. It's okay.
Right.
And they'll feel that.
Yeah. And I think that's the one thing that I didn't realize operating from that state of fight or flight all the time. Looking back now, when Drayson was younger, I think about that, and it really inhibited me from formulating connection with him.
Yes.
Because I was just trying to, it was like I just felt like I was a manager. I was just trying to manage everything. I was just trying to make sure, and my whole thing was, and then I would minimize it. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, no one's bleeding. The house isn't on fire. Everybody's okay. It was a good day. Instead of like really asking myself if I formulated that connection that day with my child, I didn't start doing that until he was much older, until recently, actually, like within the last like year or so. I've felt like I've really needed to find that way to connect with him. And I think it's because I was operating from that, from exactly what you're describing, you know? And it is kind of like a sergeant. I love the analogy that you give. It's like the sergeant, because it is. It's like you just want to go in there, okay, you're assessing the situation, you're giving like all these marching orders and this, and this needs to be done. And okay, and then at the end of the day, you're exhausted. And, you know, and then you wake up the next day and have to do it all over again.
Yes.
So, you know,
Exactly.
I think that identifying that was coming from a different place and not from the circumstance, like, and realizing that I had a choice. I could choose to operate from that, or I could choose to operate from some other way, right? Or mindset. And I think a lot of people in general, and you can tell me what your opinion is on this, like, do you feel that a lot of people in general operate from a state of fight or flight?
I think it is a natural automatic tendency.
Yes.
Definitely. So
Yes.
like there's an image I teach I teach people to reprogram through images, emotions, and words. So the words that you say to yourself, the images that you see in your mind, the emotions that you feel in your body. One of the images I teach most frequently from is, imagine you're standing on a beach and you see in front of you the sun up on the right side. So bright, so beautiful. Feel the warmth on your skin, on your face. It soothes you, relaxes your body. And over on the left side of the sky is a deep, dark storm, heavy, pulling you down. So imagine then that there is a gravity pull toward the clouds. That's exactly how the brain is wired. It's automatically going to look for what's dangerous, for what's going wrong, for what you feel is the heaviness of whatever you're experiencing. But the shift is when you can notice it, recognize where your brain is pointed, and then if you feel like those circumstances are overwhelming you, shifting your mind to the sun and asking, what do you want to experience instead?
Yeah. Do you feel that, and this just kind of came to me, do you feel that fight or flight, that a lot of people also operate within self-sabotage from that?
Absolutely. That's an unconscious state. And that's what's so hurtful, painful, hard about it is it's an unconscious choice, and yet they consciously beat themselves up about it.
Yeah.
It keeps happening automatically. Like, I did this, and then I'm shaming myself that I did this, which makes me stay in that downward cycle.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very hard place to be.
Yeah. No, and I just, like I said, that just came to me. Like I would think that there's a lot of self-sabotage that probably happens within that, because it's just that vicious cycle, like you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, I know that we talked a little bit about, you know, I know you don't practice traditional hypnosis anymore. We kind of had talked about that. But how do you help your clients consciously engage, you know, their subconscious minds instead? Like, how, you know what I mean? Because it, like you said, it's like an automatic subconscious response. So how do you shift that so that they can consciously engage?
And I love how you say that too. It's a conscious awareness of what you're doing subconsciously, right? Yeah, that's so fun. So how do you do that? How do you come to awareness? Yesterday in our group session, we talked about developing skills and how it goes from an unconscious, unaware place, and you gradually grow into a conscious state. What am I doing? And then as you continue to practice skills, it gets to a point where you're aiming, you're missing, you're making mistakes, you keep on persisting, and then you become more conscious and more aware until you get to the point where you master it, and then you become unconsciously aware. So it's in your body. It's embodied as who you are, how you naturally respond. So that's the vision and the spectrum of where we guide people through. So there's 4 stages of them first becoming aware of what is happening in your experience, because someone in that unconscious state, the first invitation is to notice. Just become aware. And often that's in the body. We want to ignore, I'm stressed out, my brain is always on go, and how do I pause, becoming aware of what you're feeling first in your body, and then in your emotions, because most often people are pushing away the emotions. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to feel it. Just
Yeah.
keep going. I'm
Just
doing
keep
right now
moving.
what I have to do. Exactly.
Right.
So first is awareness, and guiding them first through questions. And as we're doing the group sessions, we're guiding them with that intentionally with 3 key focuses to help them recognize what's going on in their life. Help them to see the sun. What's the win? What's the progress? What are you experiencing that you like in your life? What you feel joy with? And then the clouds. What feels heavy? What's hard? What's the challenge? And then the one next step is the 3rd key focus, where we're inviting them to take deliberate action, to practice whatever it is they're moving toward or moving into that might feel uncomfortable sometimes in the growth zone, but really just lots of intentional conversations and inviting them with love to notice.
Yeah. And that's, I would think that at first that would feel a little exhausting for a person that doesn't normally practice that way, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I'm like, I would think
Baby
that would
steps.
be, yeah. I mean, I know, like I said, I've definitely become more conscious of things since now that Drayson's a little bit older. But looking back, initially in the beginning with him and with his diagnosis, it was like I was just running on this, like I was running on high the whole time, and I never came down from that. And I have to deliberately catch myself now to be able to recognize that and to try to calm, which is not always an easy thing. I'm still like, listen, work in progress. Like I'm far from perfecting this, but that is something that I've noticed because I'll go off the rails and then, I come back in and I try to recenter myself. And when I try to recenter myself, I realize all these things, okay, where am I operating from that place of? So I love that you kind of talk about that. And I know you've described kind of that survival mode, right, as a learned state rather than a personal flaw. So how does shifting that perspective for someone help people create real change? Because I love that, I wrote that in as a question to you because that was a big takeaway I had from you when we had our conversation was like really understanding that survival mode was a learned state and that was not a personal flaw of mine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So, yeah, you didn't choose it.
No,
What
but I
I
felt
would
like it was me anyway. You know what I mean? Like I was
Yeah,
like,
you
oh, maybe it's just
identify.
I'm high strung.
Yeah,
Like it,
exactly.
that's a
That's who
personality
I
thing.
am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you realize, like, what are all the factors going into who you are? What made you who you are today? From 0 to 7, a child is wired in their brain. Granted, we know that they're not fully developed till 20 something. But when they're in that state of 0 to 7, and even in the womb, everything that they hear, everything that you feel as a mother, they're going to feel as a child. They have no filter, basically. Everything that's going into their experience, they're assuming is 100% true. Mom says this, then it's true. So that the brain is programming all of the wires, all the beliefs, all the identity around that as an automatic state. And think about it. A kid that young is not choosing it. So you, being that age of 4, whatever happened, you didn't choose what happened. So as an adult, you can look back and say, okay, this is the default. This is that state that was learned in all of the experiences that happened. It is what it is. And right now, as I become aware of it, I can choose. The power to choose is in the present moment. So once you look back and see that if you didn't choose it, then you can have compassion on all the past choices that you've made that you weren't aware of. And right now in the present moment is when you can decide what is your next step, what is right for you.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
I really love the perspective that you give on that because I think like it's realizing that you have the choice.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when you're siloed and you're in that mode of just, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, it's like you don't really see it. You're just in the thick of it. And
Exactly.
it's so immersive, for everyone. I mean, I've had so many conversations with parents over the years helping their child, and that's, all we're cycled into doing, and trying to figure those things out. Many of us try to simply think our way out of stress. Why does having more information usually fail to create a lasting calm?
Well, at some point, we can realize that information can help. But when you get to a point of, I know what to do, but I can't make myself do it, it's not information anymore.
Okay.
It's how do I choose it? I know I need to get calm, but I'm in this cycle of rinse and repeat. So how do I make myself stop in order to get calm?
Okay.
And that is simply a matter when it becomes of learning a skill and going through those stages of being unconscious to learning to practicing to making mistakes. As you say, you're in the process. So I call that the messy middle.
Yeah.
You're messing it up and you're doing it. Oh, I snapped again. I'm sorry. That's not who I want to be. I'm going to try that again. However it is that you want to show up, you're intentionally choosing that and building one skill at a time. So the first skill I love to teach people is the power of the pause and using the breath. No matter where you are, no matter what's happening, you always have the power to pause and breathe. If you're not driving, you can close your eyes. As you take
I'm glad you said that disclaimer, because there were just some people like, but I'm driving. I'm like, no, keep your eyes open, please, God.
Right? So the breath is so powerful. There's a guy that I learned from, Dr. Andrew Huberman. He has a Harvard podcast, and he talks about the power of the breath and how it slows down the physiology. It can slow down the heart rate. It is so powerful. When you have a heightened emotion, it feels all encompassing. It feels like this is my whole world, that anything outside of this moment doesn't exist, versus when you pause and breathe and you find that still place inside. That is what you want to tune into. And the more you choose it, the more you'll have power to choose it. So recognize that it's a choice, a conscious choice, but it's going to increase in strength every time you choose. Just calm, breathe, listen to your breath. It becomes that kind of self-calming, soothing place of just meditating and listening to your breath. So that's the first calming practice I invite people to intentionally choose.
That's a great quick tip, actually. I think I know I need to benefit from that myself as well. I'm like,
we all need to.
We
know what to do, right?
There's going to be a lot of stop and breathing here today, Penny. There's going to be a lot of stop and breathing. I'm just kidding. I know I mentioned the empowerment dynamic, also known as TED.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the TED framework and how it helps families and leaders step out of the drama?
Yeah, absolutely. So TED is a great awareness piece. When you are unconsciously reacting and you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, TED helps to put names to what is that thing that I do when I'm snapping, or what's that thing that I do when I'm controlling? Why do I go there? So TED puts names to, and it comes from a framework from Cartman, back in the 60s, I believe, a psychological framework of, and TED calls it the dreaded drama triangle. So the drama roles, and imagine this again on the side of the sun versus the clouds. On the drama side, there's the clouds, right? The reactive ways of being, of seeing yourself and treating others people. So the names of those are the victim, the persecutor, and the rescuer. So the victim one is where they believe that they don't have power to choose, where they're being controlled by outside circumstances. Life happens to me. I'm not someone that gets to choose life, right? The persecutor is one that controls other people, whether to keep them safe or whether to, be in control, and they feel good when they do that. Lots of different reasons. Everyone has their own reasons. The rescuer is the one that is the soother. They want to go in, make it all better, put the Band-Aid on. Oh, it's okay. You don't have to do that. I'll do it for you. And there's lots and lots of different ways that these roles show up as we're recognizing. So the key is to just recognizing what that looks like inside yourself. Why am I doing that? And I have a framework, a picture I can share with you, and we can put that in the podcast notes, how it looks like to define each of those roles more. The opposite side of the drama, imagine the side of the sun. It shifts into any one of the other opposite three roles. Number one is creator. Number two is challenger. And number 3 is coach. So these ideas come from a book called The Power of TED, which I would totally recommend. It's amazing. And David tells his story in there of when the first time he asked himself the question, what's the opposite of victim?
Yeah.
And intuitively, he got this answer, creator.
Creator.
Such a beautiful moment. And I think I had that very same experience, unless I was like feeling emotionally with him in that moment when I was reading it. It's so close to my heart that being a creator is one that recognizes I can choose. I can see what I want. I can ask for what I need. And it's a very different mindset. So a creator is one that feels like they can choose. They have that power. Life is happening for them instead of to them. The challenger is one that faces moments of difficulty and asks, okay, what's the truth about this situation? What do I need to speak that to bring out the elephant in the room, so to speak? Like they're not afraid to talk about, okay, let's talk about this. What's going on? Why are we reacting this way? And when we're working with kids that are having challenges, this is very much where I step into. Okay, tell me what happened. Why did you do that? Okay, and then what happened next? And only one gets to talk at a time, and they're all explaining their perspective, and so just speaking into that challenger role. And the third one is coach, where you're really trying to help them recognize answers inside of themselves. So it's a lot of asking questions, and that's partly what I was just describing with the parenting role, but helping people find what behaviors, what thoughts, what's going on in them, so they can slow down and come from that unconscious state into an awareness of conscious, like, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. That was an automatic choice reaction there. What do you want to choose instead? How do you want to step into who you want to be? So it's a beautiful framework for understanding the shift from the clouds, so to speak, to the sun of what you desire.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest things is realizing that, things don't happen to you. I told somebody this the other day, nothing happens to you specifically, but how you choose to respond is what's going to make the difference, right?
Exactly.
And that's been a hard lesson for me to learn over the years, let me tell you.
Yeah.
That's been a really hard lesson. But I love how you break that down and explain that framework, because I think that it sounds so simplistic, right? Like easier said than done, right? Like, but it's true. Like if we could really break it down to that way, I mean, how wonderful would that, would that be on a daily basis, and how much less stress it would be for us,
Yeah.
So I can see why you love TED so much and this framework of it, because I think that it really allows you to take that step out and go, okay, well, where am I and what role am I in right now?
Exactly.
Because I think we have different roles depending on the situation. It could be victim or it could be challenger or it could be creator. Or it could be, we step into different roles all of the time. So I think identifying those roles is really important for us on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
Now, I know there's a couple more questions I have before we end the show today. And one of them is, if a listener could practice just one small shift today to feel more grounded and steady, what would you invite them to try? Would it be the calm and breathe?
If that is their baby step, like intuitively finding answers inside is going to be the most important and the fastest way to shift. The answers that you get inside is what creates that transformation to you. So if you are in a place of reactivity, yes, the first baby step is finding that calmness, feeling the calmness in your body, finding that calm place in the front of your brain. I love to imagine a waterfall flowing through my body. Just breathing it in, releasing the stress. Imagine what you want to come in. Imagine what you want to release and let go. Yeah. If you're ready to step into the next practice, I would invite you to look at the 4 R's process as you are after your calm. Look at from your outside perspective. Imagine that there's a tree, or you can imagine you're sitting by a tree. The trees and the branches represent circumstances, things that are happening in the outside world, things that might be happening to you or for you, however your perspective is. don't judge yourself and just allow yourself to notice what's happening in your experience. So what is it in your life that's causing you the downward pull toward the clouds? Is there an emotion? Is there a circumstance? What feeling is that circumstance causing? So first go to the branches and then go to the trunk of the tree, which represents the emotions. What am I feeling about this circumstance? So it breaks it down into the pieces instead of feeling all encompassing and overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then after you've recognized, and sometimes you can't recognize necessarily the name of the emotion, but you can feel it, like, where do I feel this in my body? How is that showing up for me? How can I allow awareness and just let myself sit with this for a minute?
Yeah.
And then the roots represent the beliefs. What do I believe about myself in this moment when this thing happens? So there was a situation, I'll just give a quick example, where my son, he was showing up in a way that I unconsciously reacted, and I snapped, and I had to pause afterwards. And of course I apologized, but I'm like, why did that trigger me so much? So I looked at the circumstances. I'm like, okay, we were in the living room talking, and I felt this. I felt controlled. I felt like he was trying to tell me what to do. And what did I believe about myself? I felt powerless in that moment. I felt like he was trying to be my ex-husband of how so I was getting triggered by the layers, right? And that's what we hold inside. That's why we keep going to the default, is because we haven't yet become aware and conscious of what's inside. So just having that awareness practice, sitting with what you're experiencing, what's the circumstances, what's the emotion, what's the beliefs, and just allowing yourself to notice.
To notice it, yeah.
Yep.
I think that's one of the biggest keys. Yeah, absolutely. I know, and for our listeners today, I'm going to post all of your information in the show notes, but can you tell our listeners a little bit more intently about what you do and how they can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So mental fitness is the ability to focus on what you desire and let go of what you fear. So it's really a practice of mental awareness and learning to become aware of where my thoughts are focused. So we go through different skills of recognizing with images and emotions and help them to organize in their mind exactly what's happening, and also teaching these calmness practices. I guide meditations. We have a group program, and also I do private coaching that helps them to have practices to integrate the calmness into their body. A lot of the times when people step into meditation, they're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know how to do this. So it's really a walking with them process of helping them to recognize, what are you thinking? How are you feeling? And how do you want to shift it? So the ultimate goal is to truly help them to step forward into their life, to create what they desire, to feel how they want to feel, and to believe and see themselves showing up in their life as their best self, the way that they want to show up. And through visualization, it really does create those pathways in the mind that, okay, now I've visualized it in my mind, and now I see that pathway in my mind to go forward. So then it becomes a practical application of, okay, let's imagine that next step. What does that look like? So yes, I absolutely love walking with people, helping them to recognize the journey of what's going on inside. And there's so much power in being able to find those answers inside. And that's what I do. I hold that space for them to be able to find those answers from inside and move toward what they desire. Where you can find me is kokorocreators.com. It's KOKORO creators.com. And we have our 4-stage program. There's different tools for what you need at different stages. And I would be happy to support whatever you feel like is your next step.
Oh, that's awesome, Pennie. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate all of your time and your energy and your expertise. And for my listeners, if you're interested in reaching out to Pennie, please do so. I highly encourage it so that you can step out of that state of fight or flight and into a state of calm. Which we all aspire to get to in one way or another. But thank you so much for being on the show today, Pennie.
Thanks so much, Nikki. It's a joy to be with you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you. This concludes our episode for today. If you have questions, comments, or even a show topic that you would like to hear about, please feel free to send me an email at info@piecesformypuzzle.com. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram if you have not done so already, or feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you like what you're hearing, please spread the word so that we can continue to encourage and support autism families. And feel free to give us a good rating on your preferred podcast platform of choice. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, keep working on your puzzle. And remember, you don't have to have it all solved in a day. Take care.